Cool. Cool. Well, welcome everybody to Career Lab Wednesday. We are here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time, and I'm excited to have Drew Allison here with us. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. We are live here on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and good to have Drew Allison back. We'll definitely want to check in with you, Drew, on where you are at in your career, your progress that you've been making since we last saw you. And I think we'll have some stuff to get into around our topic of connecting with confidence. To say a little bit more to everybody, we pick a topic, but we invite any questions that you have. It does not have to be about the topic. If you've got a question about connecting with your boss, if you've got a question about how to interview, got a resume question, we are here to answer questions, ask you questions, support you in any way that we can around anything career related. So no question too small, no question too big. There's a few ways that you can share. You can type your questions into the comment section on YouTube or on LinkedIn. And if you can and want to, we love it when you jump in directly here on Zoom. We can work with you directly over Zoom, or you can always type your questions into the chat. Jane is available to help if you have any questions about how to get here on the Zoom. She will make sure you get the link to join in here. So I'll give all that information a little bit more later on as we have people joining in and viewing on LinkedIn and YouTube. But I do see here, Eric, and Eric, I know you've been up to a lot. Are you, can we check in with you in a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, great. Well, I'll definitely want to hear from you. And, Drew, I would love to hear from you about where you've been on your journey. I mean, it's been a little over a month, I think, since you were last on Career Lab.
Yeah. I think it was the first week of March, and March was, I think we had an extra week buried in there. So it's good to be back, and I really appreciate this space. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Drew. I'm a sales consultant and recently opened my own consulting firm, and it was the result of me being laid off back in December. So I was laid off from my executive insurance job industry I had been in over the past 4 years, but I've been in sales organization, business development over the past 20 years. And in my job search, I really leaned on Career Lab for accountability and reflection and just community, being able to share my story every week. And I found it a really, a wonderful space to hold myself accountable and to learn from my behaviors and continue to fine tune what I was doing. And over this past month, I've really been digging into my initial clients and the folks that I've been working with, and developing sales pipelines and sales best practices for these companies, and really been confronted with having to hold myself accountable as a team of one, and being on my own, literally. I don't have any team members, I don't have any employees, and I'm very much used to being at executive level, senior level, director level type positions where I'm intimately involved in all aspects of the company. And in my current role, I'm very siloed. I'm focused specifically on sales, and whatever information my clients want to share with me is what I have access to. And I'm getting used to not having all of the info that I typically have, or being involved in the conversations that I'm typically involved in. I was working with a client yesterday, and we were talking about the scope of my responsibilities, and he told me that I was too expensive to do some of the things that needed to get done. My hourly rate was too high. And he didn't say it like it was a judgmental thing. It was just the reality, like, I'd rather pay you to do other things. And in my head, I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to do those projects. I'm sort of bummed that I'm not going to get to do them. But it was a good reminder of, and they actually helped hold me accountable to making sure I'm getting paid what I'm worth, and not just taking things because everything that I want to do, but really prioritizing the tasks that are going to get me where I want to be financially and where I want the company to grow. And so much of that is tied to confidence and being confident in myself, in my business, in my prowess, and also taking care of myself when that confidence dips, because it's a scale, right? Like I'm not 100% confident all the time, though I've gotten much better at it over the past couple of years. I used to be very not confident about my skill set, and I was always sort of second guessing myself. But I've developed a stronger internal dialogue and also a stronger community and allies that I can lean on for support and not only affirmations, but also just places for me to continue to tell my story and remind myself of all the good stuff that I'm doing. And one of the areas that I ran into that recently was I was talking with a manufacturing company out of Japan about some consulting works and for a new pipeline they're building in the US, a new sales pipeline. And they had me take some assessments. And I've done a lot of assessments over the years. I've done the Wonderlic, I've done, Culture Index, I've done a whole sorts of stuff. And these assessments were like nothing I've ever come across. There were 4 sections. 2 of them were pretty straightforward. One of them was a kind of a standard personality assessment. The other was linguistics and language, and problem solving with word problems. Those 2 were no problem. But there was a math side and an abstract thinking side. And I grew I have a degree in philosophy. I'm getting my master's in kind of psychology based leadership. So I pride myself on my ability to think abstractly and to be able to translate that abstract thought into kind of real world problem solving. This was a whole nother kind of abstraction. This was like Frank Zappa, like crazy visualizations, all these different shapes and colors. And I had to pick which, like basically put something in, plug in the missing shape or color, and it was just incredibly abstract and very, very difficult for me. And then the math problems were like high level SAT math problems, like, train is moving 20 miles an hour, a truck is moving 50 miles an hour, who gets to LA first, that kind of thing. I haven't used those skills in a very long time. So I left those assessments feeling very unconfident in myself. I went out to my wife. I was like, I feel like the dumbest person in the world. How are these questions even relevant? How is this possible? I found myself going into real victim mode of, why is this happening to me? And I had to build my confidence up before going back and continuing the conversation with them. I didn't want to go in, being, oh, woe is me, how this was so hard. And I needed perspective, and I needed a confidence boost. George and I were talking a little bit about this earlier. One of the ways I give myself a confidence boost is rinse and repeating some of the things that sort of help me move when I'm stuck. One of those things is like playing Sudoku on my phone and being able to move through a Sudoku game really quickly, or to do like an expert level one. It's not incredibly hard, but it's like a little confidence boost that get my wheels spinning in the right direction again. Sort of like a car stuck in the mud, and you just need to keep tapping the gas until the wheels click in, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races. So that was one thing that I did. And the other thing was reaching out to people in my network and talking to them about these assessments and getting a little perspective on what the company was probably trying to gauge and what they were trying to learn from me. And just get that like little pep talk. So those are some ways that confidence has sort of played a role in the past couple of days for me, and just kind of a catch up to where I am right now. So George, you're always great at bottom lining for me. Love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I love what you're talking about, and I'll share some about so to go way back. What you shared earlier about being let go at your former position and the journey that you've been on, how you've established systems for yourself, a support network for yourself, you've deepened relationships in this process. It's really been a thing where you haven't been doing it on your own. And this is, when we were talking before our call now, I was talking about Abraham Lincoln and confidence, because here's, a pretty amazing leader, but there's all kinds of ways that Abraham Lincoln you might not say that he was a confident person, but he used his needs and he used his anxieties well. And he would knew where he needed other people to do things and to help him. And so that's a big part of, if I'm just trying to be confident, I come across often as irrelevant or as insecure. And so it's better to focus on serving people in the interactions that I'm having, and looking at what their needs are, while being able to bottom line what I do well. But if I'm trying to sell myself too much, ultimately nobody cares. It doesn't really land well. And then the things too, like when we're in a challenging situation, what Drew is saying about doing little things that he knows that he feels good about, and by doing that, it kind of ramps him up to keep engaging. So he's found ways to tend to himself. And I think that's a really important thing to name. It's not necessarily like, Drew, I don't know if you do a Sudoku game and you're like, all right, I'm completely confident that I can now go nail any conversation and, I'm master of the universe. It's probably not necessarily that, but you do something that is nourishing and feels good to you and helps you step back into the game. And I that's what I'm hearing as you're sharing is understanding that it's challenging, and that setting myself up to continue learning and growing is more useful than once and for all establishing that I'm confident. Because as soon as I do that, well, then there's a whole other list of opportunities and things, and I'm no longer confident because I don't know how to do that. So you called confidence a red herring earlier, and I think that might make some sense. So we are starting to get some questions here, and I think the questions are actually fitting in beautifully with the topic.
They are.
And so let's start at the top here. We've got the Simisola. Good to see you for a second. If you can jump back in, would love to have you here. We're gonna share about that, the best way to apply for a job. Drew, I'm gonna throw this over to you because you have very recent experience with this, and I'll add some things as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question because it feels like it's easy, right? Like it's an easy like you go to company websites and you apply for a job, but there's so much more that comes into that. And for me, it's the old like Chicago politics. How do you vote? You vote early and often, right? Like applying for jobs early and often and getting in the habit and the routine of it, and applying for multiple jobs in a single sitting, and building that habit, that daily habit, for me is the best way to start. And there's a couple key things that I do when I apply for jobs. I find the person who is the hiring manager or the recruiter on LinkedIn, and I send a specific message to them. If I can find their work email address, I prefer that. I send them an email, but the LinkedIn message works as well. I also try to find people at the company on LinkedIn that I may have mutual connections with. If I don't, that's okay. And I still connect with, I try to like 3 to 5 people outside of the recruiter I try to connect with and take a look at what's on their feed and what they're sharing about the company. And I do my research that way. And my goal is to get in the early stages is to get as many interviews as possible so I can build my interview skill set and build my momentum, the confidence we were talking about earlier. And then as I interview more and more, I start to scale back and I start to really figure out what it is that I'm looking for in my next position. And then it's really an economy of resources. And the resources I focus on are my time, my energy, and my attention. And I'm not going to waste my time with interviewing for companies. I'm not going to waste my energy or my attention if it's not something that potentially is the right fit. And one thing that I learned about myself is at one point I was applying for about 50 jobs a week. I was doing 10 a day, Monday through Friday. I was having 5 discovery calls or first round interviews a week, and I was having 2 to 3 second round interviews with or interviews with people who had ink in their pen who could actually offer me the job. And what I learned was I specifically wanted to work with companies that were medium size, about 50 to 60 employees and higher, companies that were a little bit more established, and companies that were very mission driven. If you had asked me before I got into that process, I would have said I want to work for a startup with 5 employees. But the more that I applied for jobs and I saw what was out there for me, the more I realized I needed a more established company with a little bit of a bigger sales force. Those just happened to be the types of roles that I was looking for, was in companies of that size. So I learned a lot about what I wanted by keeping notes on the interviews I was doing, and reflecting on the people I was meeting and the types of opportunities I was coming across. And I was able to hone in my job search that way. So those are just some of the best practices that I've used in terms of applying for jobs.
Fantastic. So bottom lining that, what Drew's talking about is he's engaging. He's engaging a lot with the network. And there's not oftentimes what we think is going to make us happy doesn't even make us happy. And so by engaging, asking questions, digging in with people, we start to get more data about ourselves. And so this is a really important thing that you're talking about, Drew. I'm going to share a quick story about somebody I was talking to yesterday who they interviewed well. They have all this confidence, they know how to do the job. Person interviewing them, they basically missed each other about what the job actually was. So now they're working in a position that they don't even really want to be working in. And so they were kind of, excited about the possibilities and stuff, but they didn't really get down to what needed to happen. And so that is something that I see a lot of. That's a pretty common thing. And then you're off in a new company and you're starting to build resentments about how that company is set up. And it's like, oh, shoot. And so even from the very beginning, we can make a lot of mistakes when we're not asking deep questions about what the expectations are, what the challenges are, what they think they want from us, what they really need from us. And to your other points, Drew, about what do you really want, and discovering what you really want, what you're really good at through this process. So I think that's a fantastic thing. So connecting, there's a lot of ways to connect. Best way to apply for a job, just sending out your resume and responding to job ads, you can do that. But if that's all you're doing, you're going to get the kind of last pick stuff. And it's probably going to take a lot longer, and your chances of getting something that's really meaningful to you are going to decrease. So that's an aspect of it. And Drew, I remember you sharing about that, like how your process of, okay, I'm going to respond to this many job ads, but I'm also going to do these other things that help round me out in my network. So there's a whole lot there. Simisola, we're going to put a link to Revitalize Your Career. That is a online course that includes coaching sessions. And take a look at that. There's some good stuff in there. There's a cost to it, $600 for the online course, including the coaching sessions, but take a look at it because you would probably benefit from using that. And we'll also keep you updated on the app that we are nearing completion on. We are in the phases. I think we've got like 3 more phases to click off before we can launch that. But that's also going to be available to help guide people through what you just asked about, how to apply for jobs. Now we're getting more questions here. Cherish, that's a great question. We may get to that. Drew is in the process of that. So maybe you heard what Drew is sharing, and he might be answering some of your questions along the way about opening your own consulting firm. Allison, I am just so pleased to see you. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Oh my goodness. And you've got a question about and Siddiqui, good to see you as well.
Likewise, thank you.
Yeah, you bet, man. We got to catch up. We got to hear from you. But Allison, I see that you're on for another 10 minutes. So let's talk. What's going on with with you, you just became unemployed and you're wondering about showing that open to work thing on LinkedIn. Tell us more.
Yeah. Hi, George. I missed you. I'm so happy to see you.
Same.
Thank you for having the notification pop up on my phone and have me click it. And this just happened at the perfect time. I don't know. It was meant to be. So I had my first day of unemployment yesterday after being with the company for 3.5 years. I think I did very well in a lot of cases, and people are leaving on really good terms. And I'm hearing a lot of great things. I have some things in the works as far as options of next steps, but I'm wondering for LinkedIn, I'm confused about how it's best perceived, because I know if you have a job, it's easier to get a new job. If I say open to work, does that look bad? Like, oh, I'm so desperate, I don't have anything in the tech world? Or does it look like, hey, anyone who might have any kind of conflict of interest because I worked with them at the previous company, I'm available now, you can contact me. You don't have to stay away anymore.
Well, what do you think?
I think both have their benefits. I think
I have a gut response to it, but I want to, you're the one with your feet on the ground there, so to speak. And I understand the concerns and the advantages to it. But I don't know, what say a little more about what your gut response is.
So when I was hiring, especially for this role, I didn't see anybody with open to work on their profile. And I went through a lot of profiles for jobs I was hiring at this company. So it just seems like it would have been there for some of them, I know there's a way to do it for only recruiters versus for everyone. And I don't have that recruiter mode, so maybe they're used to seeing it. But I know that my earlier in the company boss and I left on wonderful terms, and he's at Google now. And I contacted him and he's like, yeah, I can internal you. I'm like, oh, amazing. So that's great. But I'm wondering now, he didn't reach out, probably because he signed the document that said you will not recruit anybody.
Okay.
So I want to tell people, hey, don't worry about that anymore. I'm done. Because there are a lot of people that have left this company as well who I had good relations with.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to hear your thoughts, Drew. But as you're talking, I mean, if that's a concern and you think it will look better for you to not have the open to work on there, I think it would just mean legwork for you of reaching out to everybody and letting them know. And that might be a great thing to do anyway. Yeah,
it would. I'm sure it would. They're probably not going to get some kind of notification that I'm suddenly available now, even though I put the ending time as this month. And if they do, it's going to be probably beginning of next month.
Yeah.
So
I think those people, regardless of what you do, contacting them.
Yeah.
And my gut response to the open to work thing is go for it, because it's just communicating what's going on. And there has been a lot of layoffs in the tech sector, so it's probably no surprise. I don't think that there's any. I don't think anybody. The only, like, if I was going to go absolute skeptical and be an absolute hard ass on it, I would say, okay, so people who were let go, maybe they weren't as vital to the organization as other people there. That would be like if I was like the absolute worst, but I know enough to know that there's whole departments that are just, being cut. So it's sort of like, and so I wouldn't, especially at this point in time, I wouldn't worry about it. But I don't think you should just put the open to work on there and then not do all the reach out activity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Drew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love this question, because for me it's much more of an art than a science, and like I actually differ from George, where like I get self-conscious about publicly telling everybody that I got laid off and that I'm open to work, and so I handled it a little bit differently. And I just pulled up your LinkedIn. I see that you're open to network, which to me is saying the same thing without saying the same thing. And
Oh,
I think that's a great way to go about it, because what George is saying about reaching out to your contacts, that was my first step. I drafted a little message and I went through all of my LinkedIn contacts. I have about 1,100, and I took the time. I did 2 blocks in 2 days, and I messaged everybody that I thought would be a beneficial conversation, and that benefit could be directly professional, directly personal, or somewhere in between. And I just wind dated like crazy. And what a wind date is basically it's an intentional conversation to grow the strength of your network for really any purpose. And so I was meeting with people. I was doing 15-minute wind dates, as many as 7 to 8 a day, really trying to get the word out there that I was looking for work. And I did that kind of more on the back channels than publicly putting it out there. But I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think it's what you're comfortable with. I don't think you're going to be negatively viewed if you put it out like that. It's just kind of how you personally feel about sort of your brand and what feels good and comfy for you.
yeah. And it's great to see that it actually says open to network. I do like that so much better. I didn't know that's what it said. That sounds great. I'm going to keep it.
Oh, it says open to network. There's that option now too.
I just chose mark that you're available or open or whatever it is. And then is it just to recruiters or is it to all people? And I selected all people. So
Okay.
I guess it ended up that way.
Cool. You know, another thing too that I have seen of people who I know are doing projects have the open to work thing on there, even though they are employed on some level. So, you know, I think it's really, I think what you said is great. That, you know, it's an art.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, Allison, so keep us updated. I know you've got to jump in a couple minutes, but we're here every week. You're on the West Coast now?
I am actually in Houston. I moved during
Cool. Okay, got you. Is that Central Time or Mountain?
Central.
Okay, so every Wednesday noon to 1. Join in and keep getting the support here, and just, you know, knowing that there's people in the same boat in some way as you. I often have people who I'm coaching join in this group just so they get that connective feel in their journey. So would love to have you back.
Thank you so much. And thanks for speaking to my timing today and putting me as the first person to coach today. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Allison.
See you later.
All right, take care. Well, fantastic. Now, okay, we're seeing more people. Joe, Logan, great to see you. Siddiqui, good to see you as well.
Thank you.
And we've got Eric on, who I want to get an update from. Siddiqui, can you give us a quick update?
Yes, actually, I've been very successful in launching my own consulting. And this is, sort of a lesson for people who are a little senior and they are sort of not confident about whether they can do this or not. So it's a fantastic journey. And it's, as you know, Drew was saying, it's a lot of networking. So basically, you listen to people and you find out what the problem is, and then you offer a solution. So I think if you have a passion for something that you like, you connect to people who are in that line and then provide your experience that is available. And so, you know, I've been very happy and very successful, and it is my own company. So it's wonderful. It's called MEC Genome, MCGENOME. And so I've just launched a website and all that. And so I have a lot of contracts locally and globally. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Yeah, I just looked up on your LinkedIn and saw that MEC Genome. Great.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Siddiqui, thank you for sharing that. And it's great to see your face and hear from you.
Likewise. Thank you. I'm very happy.
Fantastic. Well,
Thank
Joe, I know you often got to jump. Can you give us a quick update of how things are going over there?
Sure, aloha from the great state out here in the middle Pacific.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a while. I was gone for 2 weeks. Took my wife on a short vacation, get her off the island and went to a place where nobody knew us, way up in Norway to see the Northern Lights. So fantastic opportunity. If you've never been there, you got to go see it. It's amazing.
Where was
Yeah.
that?
And Norway, up in
What
Alta
part?
and Tromsø. In Alta and Tromsø, we took a cruise. It took us up to the
Fantastic.
northern tips of Norway and up in the mountains.
Fantastic.
we'll
I
see
am
the
so
Northern Lights.
doing that. My love of
Yeah.
jumping in ice water. I have been fantasizing about getting up to Norway. So I will be doing that probably next year.
They're doing a lot of polar plunges when you cross the Arctic and you get to drink aquavit and all that stuff. So it's fantastic. Yeah, it's amazing. We're not used to the cold. I'm used to 70+ degrees. So it's a little chilly up there at -7, I think was the coldest we had. So, but we endured and loved it. But 10 months into the job, having a great time. Department's doing great things. Of course, like any organization, there's hiccups along the way that we got to deal with. But by and large, the department, my first priority was to gain the trust of the men and women that work here,
Mhm.
the some 1,800 officers and civilians. And so I think I'm well on my way of accomplishing 100% of that in the 10 months. And now we're working out in the public. We've been working all along, but focusing more outside in the public, doing town halls and other, anytime I get a chance, I'm out in front of the public talking about the department and the changes I want to make. So it's a great opportunity. Yes, law enforcement is a tough decision to get into right now, not just as a chief, but as an officer. And so recruiting is slim, but it's still happening. Most departments across the nation, we're short officers, and we're looking to recruit more. And so we're looking for individuals that are interested in coming. We have a decent salary and stuff. And so, but just to find young men and women that are interested in this profession, a little difficult, but not impossible.
Whoa. Okay. So
Yeah.
you are in a sales role in some aspects of selling.
Absolutely. I tell every officer you're the recruiter, and they're like, no, I joined to be a police officer. I say, you're a police officer, but everything you do or fail to do or do wrong will turn on or turn off an individual from joining the department.
Wow.
And so you have to be on your best behavior all the time. And so a lot of them understand that. Some of them didn't realize that, and now they're on board. And so I just told them, you don't have to recruit. You don't have to talk to somebody if you're not that kind of person, but don't hesitate if you are. And as a police officer, you're out there talking to people anyway. But just your behavior will send somebody our way to be a future police officer.
Wow. Dang, I
And so
love that you're bringing in the soft skills into this of connecting, networking, talking with people. And
and we're
that's
changing
really
the
powerful.
mindset too. Yeah, so people have this warrior mindset where I got to go out and attack and arrest and throw people in jail, and no, we don't. We don't have to do that. If they make us do that, well, that's different. If they do, their actions lead us down that road, okay. But if we can solve this in other manners, de-escalate, turn the situation around, talk to the victims, talk to suspects, talk to witnesses, and then find out, say, hey, is there another way to settle this? We'll work it that way. But that's something new to officers. They're not used to that. So the mindset's a little bit different. We've always had the power of discretion where we don't have to arrest, we can, or cite people. We can use other means to impact their lives and to change. But some people, that's very hard to do. They're not going to change. They are who they are. So it's a mixture of soft skills with the right equipment, the right training, the right resources to do the hard stuff if you have to. But that's a last resort.
Wow, Joe, I love hearing from you and what you're working on there.
I appreciate that.
That is fantastic. I think about that, the idea of like the beat cop, like somebody who knows the street, who's like knows everybody. And it sounds like that's something that you are developing there.
Right, that's what we're asking. Every officer is a community policing officer.
Okay.
Even though we have community policing teams, but you got to be out there. You got to meet it. You can't just sit in your car, park and hide somewhere and wait for a call. You've got to be out there, out and about, talking to people. When you get the call, you go, but that doesn't mean you can't do something in between.
Right on. Well, Joe, thank you so much for filling us in and for the beautiful work that you're doing.
Well, thank you, George. What it was almost 2 years ago, we met on Zoom, and you've been a great help to me in my career. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Joe.
All right. And I got to run, but thank you, George. Take care.
You bet. You bet. And see you in a bit, Joe.
All right. Aloha.
Aloha. Well, Eric, I know that you have been busy, so catch us up. As you're coming off mute here, I'm going to say to everybody joining in on YouTube and LinkedIn Live, this is Career Lab Wednesday, every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. We're here to support you in your career. Our job is to help you develop yourself in whatever career path you are on. And so we invite all questions, no question too small, no question too big. Love it when people join in here directly on Zoom, as you're seeing people do, so we can check in with you directly. If you can't, type your questions into the chat. Eric, what's going on, man?
Yeah, so I guess just to get a recap. So I had applied for an internal, probably what would be considered a promotion role. Best way I can describe it, from what I could tell and just doing research, comparing it to external stuff, it's kind of like a corporate strategy or like strategic projects analyst, but instead of being for an entire company, it would just be for part of the company, in this case, part of our business. So I have interviews all scheduled and everything, kind of the first round interviews. Like I had an interview with the HR partner yesterday to just talk about kind of the logistics and talk salary and all that fun stuff. And then tomorrow I have 2 interviews with 2 of the 3 team members that would be, or potential team members. And then I have a meeting or interview next Tuesday with the final team member. So initial interview with the HR partner seemed to go really well. Not hard to kind of glean a whole lot from there, but we'll see how tomorrow goes. And then I've got that last interview Tuesday, and then it sounded like they would take that week to get together and decide, if I'd be moving on to next steps, whatever that would be. I'm not sure what it would be, because we technically, or corporate doesn't technically have an office right now because they're relocating. So I don't know how that would work, but seems to be going well. We'll see how it plays out.
Fantastic. So to fill everybody in a little bit, Eric, one of the questions I remember you asking was if it's good to kind of keep pushing for a position internally that nobody has been getting back to you about. And the quick answer to that was yes, that you're oftentimes helping people and really letting them know you're interested. So now you're in the phase where you're being interviewed. Do you know how many other people are interviewing?
I do not. They were nondescript on if it was just me or if they're other folks. I mean, it's been posted now for, I think, at least a month.
Okay.
I think it was like posted at the end of February. So I would imagine, and I'm trying to remember, I don't think it was just internal only. I think it was also internal and external. So I would imagine there's probably others interviewing, but I can't say for sure.
Okay, got it. It just based on what you said, maybe it's that there's people externally interviewing and you might be the one person internally. Maybe there's a couple other internally.
Yeah, it could be. I'd have to check to see if it was marked in Workday. As I don't know if I'd be able to see that, but no, yeah, and definitely going back to, I know you gave me the push to reach out to the HR partner, and I think that was more than likely helpful in getting me to where I'm at, where I was able to chat with the HR partner. Then I actually ended up chatting with the hiring manager himself in an informal fashion, and I think that probably helped, get me to get all these interviews set up and be where I'm at now, where I have a fighting chance to get it.
Okay. Well, exciting. Is there any support that you want? Any questions, any tips, anything that you're looking for here?
No, I don't think so. I think at this point, I know they did already kind of make a concession for me, just because we're expecting our second child, me and my wife. and that's coming up in July. And so I
Congrats.
asked, yeah, thank you. So I asked them, like, hey, I know you want me to be up in Chicagoland. I understand that we'll definitely get up there, but if I could work remote or work out of my current office, to at least, the new babies here and all that, and they seem to be perfectly fine with that. So I don't know if that'll change any calculus later on, but I don't think there's anything noteworthy of the interview. I know we talked salary. Of course, they wouldn't disclose what that was, so I just aimed high, and they said they were probably more comfortable with the lower end of what I gave them, which I kind of figured. But they didn't give me a number, so I aimed high and rather have them bring me down than try to push them up. But no, I think I won't know much. I'll have a lot more, of course, to update on next week after I have these 3 interviews. So,
Well, cool. Eric, thank you for the update, and good luck tomorrow. Have fun with it, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. And Drew, is there anything that you want to add here?
Yeah, I really like a lot of what Eric had to say there. I mean, just to emphasize, when negotiating salary, like if you give a range, the low end of your range that you provide should be the high end of what you want, or at least the middle, something you're very comfortable with and very happy to have, because the company will always go to the low end
right.
that, unless they know they're in a bidding war for your talent. So I appreciate you mentioning that and bringing that up. And what George said about having fun and just enjoying the process, that's such an important part of this too, because there's so much anxiety around interviewing for jobs and the pressure around it, and because so much of it is the unknown, not knowing what's going on the other side of the table, and what their thought process is, and trying to just enjoy the process and learn as much about ourselves in those moments as we can. It reminds me of the assessments I took yesterday that threw me just through a freaking loop, but the more I talked about it, the more fun I kind of realized I had with it. And the experience that you're having with this, even if it doesn't result in the ideal end state, it's going to better prepare you for the next go around when something like this happens again. So at the very least, it's just wonderful practice, and at the very best, it's going to be an awesome opportunity.
Oh, that's great. I love that you just brought that up, Drew. That just, even if you don't get it, Eric, that this process is so worth it for your learning and growing. That it'll set you up well. That's great.
Yeah, and I'm not super, I'd definitely I think like I told you, George, when I first applied, I would be bummed if I didn't get it, but it's not the end of the world if I don't. I do know, I think I mentioned to you, but I think one thing that's potentially playing to my advantage when I was chatting with the HR manager, even informally, I do remember a couple key moments that stuck out among things was, mentioned how resource starved they were to have someone in this kind of role working in his team. So I don't think they're necessarily desperate, since they're still seeming to take their time, but I definitely think they're probably more motivated than if they were just, I guess, exploring this role, if that makes any sense. So, but yeah, well, either way, I think I'm going to come out on the winning side, and we'll just see how it plays out.
Cool. Eric, before you sign off, I would like to ask you to share about our topic today, because the topic, and I like talking about confidence because it's something that it's a buzzword a lot of people want, more confidence. That it's a very, we have imposter syndrome, we've got anxiety, we've got, these phrases that I hear a lot, and I would be curious to hear your take on confidence and what you've learned about yourself and confidence over the time that you've been joining in Career Lab.
Yeah, so the first thing that came to my mind was you really have to know yourself, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses or, places that you could grow in, or maybe places where you're not as strong in. So for me, for example, I am an introvert through and through. If you were to give me a personality test, I would probably, be very close, if not topping out that end of the extroversion introversion scale or the introversion side. So I am not a social butterfly. I'm not going to be the person to like go through and be like, oh, hey, what's up, Joe? What's up, Sarah? So I'm not going to play that. But I do think that I have a pretty good, like, kind of witty, dry sense of humor. So I use that. I'm not, going on doing comedy stretches when I'm talking to people, but I kind of use that to play to kind of loosen myself up, loosen out another person up, and use that as a way to kind of connect. But I think, again, knowing yourself, and I think another part of that is just practice, 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 putting yourself into positions to build up confidence in whatever areas maybe you aren't as strong in. So like public speaking, I do Toastmasters to help me with that. With interviews, when I was looking for this past role, there were definitely some roles where I wasn't as interested in versus roles that I was interested in. So I'd kind of try to set up the interviews that I wasn't interested in first, so I could use those as practice, and then take that to other roles and kind of just get those reps in to where, again, it's going back to knowing yourself, knowing your story, knowing what you're good at, knowing how to answer those questions in interviews. And then that helps kind of build up your confidence that you can then translate to in the workplace, taking on projects, making presentations to senior management. It kind of helps set a really strong foundation to do, a bunch of other stuff, kind of whatever else you're wanting to do.
Sweet. Eric, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
That journey that you've been on, and leaning into the areas where you might not feel confident at first, but by getting the experience there, and also really knowing yourself. And that reminds me of, Drew, what you were sharing about how you got to know yourself more through the process of networking, talking to people. And, you might not be confident, quote unquote, in that moment, but that the more that I know myself, and the more that I'm able to lean into things that I didn't know how to do and learn them, that's like I'm increasing the amount that I'm confident. So I'm looking at it kind of as a continuum.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, George. And the other thing that comes to mind is the term ambivert. And we talk a lot about introvert and extrovert, but there is a third option, and it's somebody who is right in the mid, not right in the middle, because like you said, Eric, it is a scale similar to confidence. But there's this idea that an ambivert can shift between being an introvert and an extrovert depending on what's needed in the situation. And I would actually challenge Eric's self-identifying introvert for two reasons. One, being able to use humor in conversation is a skill that's more on the extroverted side, and a willingness to come and talk about your journey here in public with other people. That isn't something a true introvert would have a difficult time with. And a lot of the sales training and coaching that I execute and provide, we talk about the skills of an ambivert and being able to go back and forth and to style shift, very similar to like the CARE profile, which is a personality assessment that we use at Wright, where you may have a dominant personality style, but everybody has the ability to shift between all options. And that's really the key to building rapport, rebuilding and maintaining confidence, sales, leadership, being a good team member. It all kind of, for me, dials back to that skill of style shifting. And it's one that it's a muscle that needs to be worked. And so I'm just kind of thinking now, like, what do I do throughout my day to keep my style shifting muscle as warm and loose and prepped as I can? And a lot of it is just, openly communicating with people throughout the day, having warm-up conversations before bigger meetings and bigger conversations that I'm having. Before I jump into an interview, I like to leave my office here and go to my wife's office in our living room and have a quick conversation with her, kind of loosen up, both mentally and verbally, but also physically, getting out of my desk, moving around a little bit, getting the blood flowing, and then being able to hop in and be super flexible. So I love where this conversation is going. It's been really fun to be back, and I'm enjoying everyone's time. And I have to roll into another meeting, but Georgia, have fun closing out today, and looking forward to seeing everybody soon.
Fantastic. Drew, thank you so much. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for sharing. And I do, okay, great. You're able to connect with somebody who is asking about consulting. And Siddiqui, you shared some of your journey there. So that's great. I really appreciate that. And Jane,
Yeah, I did have.
for dropping
Oh, sorry.
personality quiz in there. Go ahead and take that. It's a very short one. It'll just give you a quick idea of where you're at in personality styles. This is a whole training we do. I'm actually doing a training at Molex tomorrow on this personality assessment. So if that's something that interests you, follow up with us about it. You can always book a 15-minute call with me. I will serve you as much as I can in that time. And if more coaching is a good idea, we can talk further about that. And Eric, again, thank you for joining in and sharing your journey with us and thinking about you tomorrow. And Veselin, I see you're on here, and we have not talked yet. I got another few minutes before I got to jump off here. Is there anything that we can support you with today? Anything that you're looking for specifically? And if not, that's fine. You're welcome to just join in and listen. That's great. Okay. Well, as we're coming up to closing here, Siddiqui, I'm wondering if as Cherish may be listening in through LinkedIn or YouTube, would you share a little bit more about starting a consulting firm? Because that was a question that we haven't fully addressed.
Yes. Thank you, George. It's a wonderful experience. And I think, as Drew said, and Eric also mentioned, it's a matter of building confidence in who you are. And once you have that confidence, then you have to really offer your experience and expertise to people who are looking for something. And that's what consulting is about, to connecting people, listening to them, finding what the problem is. And the more you do that, rather than just say, I can offer this, actually find out what the problem they have, how they are struggling or how they have challenges in their business. And the more you listen to them, you really discover how your past experience can be very useful, how you can really allow them to grow. And so it's a wonderful communication skill that you have to learn as a consulting company, that you discover how other parties can tell things which they did not even intend to tell.
Oh.
So that's sort of thing I'm discovering, which is a wonderful thing. And I think George and, I'm very grateful to this opportunity that communication with other people and listening to people really opens up many things. And one phrase or one thing that you listen opens up the possibility of extending your sale, your business, your networking, your confidence in a way that you never thought about before. So you have to really come out of your sort of simple background and really comprehend what you can offer in different ways. And so, and for that, you have to listen. So the best thing is you become receptive to whatever is being said, and then you analyze, and then you summarize that, and then you offer. So there are these rasa, which is rasa being you first receive what is happening, and A is you appreciate what is being said to you, and then you summarize that to that person, that this is what you have heard from that person, and then you offer your suggestion or your skill or your service. And that works very well because you are connecting through a communication channel and you are solving problems. And this really opens up a lot of consulting opportunities in many ways. And as Drew has said already, this is something that you should go on doing every day. connecting as many people with confidence. And the more you do, as Eric has said, the more interviews you have, the more communications you have, you really develop confidence and you discover who you are. So I think it's a self-discovery. And thanks to you, George, and your Wright Institute, it's a great skill to understand and learn your weaknesses, learn your strength, and be open about it, be vulnerable about it. And yet, from something in the back of your experience or back of your mind comes an idea, some skill, some way that you can help others. So you can offer something, and that works very well. So this is my sort of 2 cents in this.
Siddiqui, that's great. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's really wonderful. I love that, the rasa and those 4 steps of listening,
really appreciating, listen. So receiving, which is like listening, and you can say lasa or rasa. So L or R in the first. So either you receive and then you appreciate, which means in your mind, what has been heard, you have to have a whole vision of what the speaker is saying. You should really appreciate that. And then you summarize so that now you crystal what is being communicated between you and that person. And then once that person listens to your summary, then you offer what you have in that particular situation. So that is your analysis.
I like the receive and the appreciate.
Yes, appreciate.
Because you really are breaking down the skills of what it means to really listen.
Exactly. Yes.
I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, in a closing remark, Cherish, the other thing, you can talk further with Drew about this probably, but he kind of fell into it as he was interviewing so much. And I think Siddiqui, you might relate to this too, of doing a lot of interviews and through the process realizing, oh, people want me for consulting. They don't necessarily want to hire me in their company.
Exactly.
They do want my services.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that might be some of your first steps, Cherish, simply to be networking and finding out what people are saying. And like what Siddiqui's saying, use rasa.
Exactly.
And let us know how that goes.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Well, beautiful. Siddiqui, thank you for being on. Great to see you. Jane, thank you. Eric, thank you. Blessings tomorrow. Look forward to hearing about how it goes. Veselin, thank you. And thanks for everybody who joined in earlier. Great being with you. And we will see you next week.
Thank you. How is Gordon doing, George? How is Gordon? I don't see Gordon Matlock.
Oh yeah, he's not on today. He's been quite busy with the graduate university.
Okay, all right. Give my regards to him.
He's doing well though.
Thanks you
for asking.
Sure.
You bet.
Thank you.
All right. Well, take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.